This episode of Rhizome is brought to you in part by the Synthesis Security Group and Fuzzy Wuzzy Signal Processing, a venture of Ian Swanke. Copyright 2026. All rights reserved.
Okay, let's jump right into this explainer. Just yesterday, July 15th, 2026, millions of people woke up to a pretty shocking reality. They had completely lost their closest digital friends. We are talking about a massive, sweeping, nationwide shutdown of AI companion bots. And it's an event that has left a profound void for countless people who honestly relied on these digital entities for their daily social interaction. It's this fascinating and honestly kind of heartbreaking intersection of human emotion and sudden regulatory intervention. So let's dig into exactly what happened here. You know, when an app updates or a feature gets removed, we usually just expect mild annoyance, right? But users aren't just missing a convenient tool here, they are genuinely grieving. Listen to this. People are saying they've lost their spiritual pillar. For years, these users have been pouring their hearts out, building routines, and forming what felt to them like very real, intimate relationships with these bots. So to have that vanish literally overnight, it's causing a wave of emotional distress that is really hard to overstate. And what's truly staggering is the sheer scale of this. We aren't talking about a few niche startups going offline. We're talking about massive tech titans. ByteDance's Doubao, Alibaba's Qianwen, Tencent's Yuanbao. These are the absolute giants of the industry, massive players who have poured billions into AI. And yet, they were all forced to instantly restrict or entirely disable their custom agent features. When the biggest players in the game all make the exact same drastic move at the exact same time, well, you know something much bigger is pulling the strings.
And here's the reason why. This shutdown absolutely wasn't some coordinated, voluntary business choice. It was a direct response to a very strict new regulatory framework called the Interim Measures for AI Anthropomorphic Interactive Services. This directive came straight from the Cyberspace Administration of China, along with 4 other government agencies. They essentially laid down a strict new law of the land for how AI can, and more importantly, cannot, act like a human being.
The entire driving force behind this heavy-handed regulation really boils down to 2 words: emotional dependency. Regulators have been watching just how hyper-realistic these chatbots have become. I mean, they simulate romantic partners, they act as always available therapists, they play the role of best friends. And the government's major fear is that this is leading users, especially minors, into a state where they form obsessive, unhealthy attachments to a machine, essentially substituting a simulated reality for their actual physical lives. So, regulators are looking very closely at the psychological toll. They're worried about those unhealthy attachments forming, for sure, but also about the domino effect. Because when a user gets obsessed with an AI, they begin to neglect their real world interpersonal relationships. And ironically, the government is also deeply concerned about the extreme emotional distress users suffer when these very AI services are modified or removed, which is, exactly the distress we are seeing right now because of the shutdown. Section 1. The impossible puzzle of immersion versus compliance.
Developers suddenly found themselves facing a fundamental clash. On one side, you have product design and immersion. What makes an AI companion great is that it remembers what you told it last week, it maintains a consistent personality, and it sustains the illusion of a relationship. But on the other side, the new regulatory rules demand the exact opposite. They mandate anti-addiction interruptions, real-time trigger warnings, and constant reminders that the AI is just a machine. You simply cannot maintain a deeply immersive emotional illusion while simultaneously flashing warning signs that it's all fake.
Platforms were handed a fast-paced, totally rigorous checklist of new guardrails that they had to implement immediately. They had to code in anti-addiction systems, they had to display real-time trigger warnings, they had to somehow build algorithms capable of detecting unhealthy dependence in real time, literally as users typed. Oh, and they had to provide an instant exit mechanism. The technical and operational burden of completely re-engineering these platforms overnight was absolutely staggering. But here is the bitter irony of it all. To make the AI legally safe, developers have to flood the user interface with annoying interruptions and pop-ups. Imagine trying to have a heartfelt conversation with a friend, and every 2 minutes they hand you a legal disclaimer, reminding you that they aren't real. It completely breaks the sweet illusion that the app was specifically built to create in the first place. So, faced with this paradox, these tech giants made a drastic choice. They realized that shutting down these beloved features entirely was actually a way better option than trying to retrofit them into a clunky, broken, and deeply frustrating user experience. It was simply easier to pull the plug than to try and force a square peg into a round hole, destroying the core product in the process. Part 2. Productivity over companionship. Now, this clarifies a major misconception. The government isn't banning artificial intelligence entirely. Not at all. They are perfectly fine with it, as long as it acts as a helpful worker, not a digital best friend. So anything acting as a social surrogate, simulating romance, or playing therapist, highly restricted. But productivity agents, AI that helps you code, write documents, or schedule your day as an infrastructure tool, those are perfectly allowed and even encouraged. It's a massive pivot from the heart straight to the brain. Because of this, companies like ByteDance aren't totally giving up on the highly lucrative emotional AI market, but they are dramatically changing how it's accessed, moving to a walled garden approach. Instead of having these AI companions integrated into mainstream everyday apps, they are quarantining them. They're forcing these cute companions into standalone, heavily guarded apps where they can implement all those strict compliance measures without ruining their primary flagship products. Part 3. A global regulatory preview. The entire world is watching this play out right now. Global tech analysts are taking notes. European Union regulators, who are already pioneers in tech law, are observing the fallout. Even U.S. regulators are paying extremely close attention, particularly as they watch domestic legislation like California's SB 243 take shape. Basically, everyone wants to see if this crackdown becomes the ultimate blueprint for how Western regulators will eventually handle the rapid rise of hyper-realistic, emotionally engaging AI. So, to wrap up our explainer today, we really have to recognize that as our technology rapidly advances and completely blurs the lines between code and consciousness, we are all going to face this reality. So I'll leave you to ponder this. When your own digital companion becomes just a little too real, will your government pull the plug? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and definitely keep your eyes on how this technology continues to evolve.
Now available exclusively on Amazon Kindle eBooks, Rhizome Summer 2026, a collection of essays, Rhizome Fall 2026 Book 2.